The year was 1994. My parents were divorced and I wasn't playing with my NES that much anymore. I still had my Game Boy though. I didn't play games that much as real-life football took over. That wasn't until 1996 when we were visiting my mother's friend and her son showed me Duke Nukem 3D. Duke Nukem made me want a computer, and luck would necessitate it. Extreme luck, actually. In the fall of 1996 I was at a store with my mother and sister and I was going through the rubbish bins looking for scratch and win tickets that people might have forgotten, and in retrospect slightly embarrassing hobby. But this day I picked up a ticket that had 100,000 crowns in winnings on it. For reference, that's 10,000 euro or 14,300 US dollars. I flipped out, of course, took the ticket to the cashier to check if it was valid, and it was. Someone had actually scratched it, looked at it, and thought there was no winnings on it, and thrown it away. Lucky me, right? In fact, I think I used up all my life's cumulative luck on that one occasion. Anyway, part of the money was used to buy me a brand new computer. My computer was a Pentium 166 with 16 megabytes of RAM, 2 megabyte graphics card, and 8-speed CD. My schoolmates helped me get some of my first games for it. The early days of my PC era was mainly spent with first-person shooters. Duke Nukem 3D was the big one, of course, then Doom and Wolfenstein 3D. I remember the lottery of booting up Wolfenstein 3D and hoping the AdLib/Sound Blaster kicked in. Playing it with PC speaker was unbearable. Doom was great, and still is. The chainsaw is beyond awesome, and I think the Doom guy is definitely the best Space Marine ever. I mean, he literally fought through hell and back. As the game says, he was too tough for hell to contain. The music is great, some of it is very metal. I didn't know at the time that some of the songs are rip-offs of Pantera songs. I think that makes it all the better though. A little later on, I got Quake. I remember in school when the talk shifted from Duke Nukem 3D being the best to Quake. Also, the PC Gamer magazines I was reading were all ecstatic about the full 3D graphics, and sites and magazines still bring that up today when talking about Quake. Now don't get me wrong, it was a milestone and all, and a great game, but I always thought the Duke Nukem 3D looked better. More colors than brown and red, for example. Anyway, what I'll remember Quake for is running around with the axe on quad damage and hacking the grunts to pieces. Some of the other FPSs I want to mention are Rise of the Triad, which I remember for the digitized enemies, and the ride code with which you could follow rockets to their bloody goal. Redneck Rampage, which I remember for its fun levels in hillbilly towns and how you would whack the brother with a crowbar to finish levels. And Blood. I live again. Which introduced me to the rest in pieces joke, kicking zombie heads around, and the voodoo doll, one of the coolest weapons ever. One time pretty early on, when I had only had the PC for maybe 6 months, I thought I was being really clever when I put shortcuts to all my games on a diskette, thinking I could then bring all my games anywhere, in my pocket. I realized quickly, however, that the truth was that the shortcuts would only work on my own computer. Not very smart. Anyway, I also played sports and other fun games. I was big into FIFA 97 and 98, as well as NHL 98. I remember playing FIFA 97 for extended periods of time, just slide tackling people in the other team with the rules turned off. I would tackle over and over and laugh at the players getting hurt. It was especially fun when a player would get injured and grab his knee, then get up and limp. I would then swiftly tackle him again and laugh. I was kind of sadistic, huh? Psycho Pinball became my favorite pinball game, plenty better than the other game that came with Windows 95, Space Cadet. It even had mini-games that took place in the scoreboard and you controlled with the flippers and launcher. DX Ball was a favorite of both me and my sister. I didn't know at the time that it was based on Tato's Arkanoid, which is in turn based on Atari's Breakout. A full year after I had discovered Duke Nukem 3D, we went to visit my mom's friend and her son again. This time he had another new game to show me, and it was Command & Conquer Red Alert. This became my new favorite game, and started a period of fascination in real-time strategy games. A classmate suggested that the original Command & Conquer was also good, and it sure was. I preferred Red Alert gameplay-wise, with its better units and planes, etc., but I preferred the original Command & Conquer otherwise. The Commando was such a badass, and when Seth was shot in the head by Kane in full motion video, that was the most shocking thing I've ever seen at the time.
Yes, power shifts more quickly than some people think. I am Kane.
My RTS period continued with Age of Empires and Caesar 2. I tried Warcraft, but even though RTS games are all about clicking, that game didn't really click with me. The next and last RTS I would play a lot was StarCraft. I would play as the Terrans mostly, but I was in awe of the Zerg Queen Sarah Kerrigan and how powerful she was. One overlooked game that I want to give a shout out to is Police Quest 4 Open Season. My sister brought this game to my attention. At first we got hooked on it because it looked like a movie and had voice acting, and it was very interesting doing odd things like touching everyone and just listening to them react. That forensic woman, Chester, she was funny in how uptight she was. If you touched her, she always gave a formed speech about sexual harassment.
Detective Carey, sexual harassment is a violation of federal and state law and of city and department policy.
If you touch her repeatedly in the office, she eventually gets you fired. With the help of a walkthrough, the first one I ever used, we got through the game and solved the case with a serial killer dressing up like a woman when killing his victims. In the end, you found a head in a fridge and killed him with a spray can lighter combo. At the time, this was certainly the most mature game I had played. Then I had a period of liking racing games. It started with Big Red Racing, in which John St. John did voices, which I would find out later. The revolutionary thing for me in that game was how you could stray from the path and drive around the whole track instead of being herded down the road like most other racing games. Moto Racer is the only bike game I've ever played, in 3D at least. I like doing tricks in the dirt track the most. The first and probably only realistic racing game I've ever liked was Need for Speed 2. And even then I had the most fun when using a code to add traffic to the tracks and then running into them. Destruction Derby 2 appealed to me for the same reasons. I've always liked to drive roughly, and this crystallized with Carmageddon. That game was tons of fun, smashing into crazy cars and splattering pedestrians running about. Carmageddon was also great for how you could drive anywhere on the map, and actually racing took a distant backseat to the mayhem and exploring. There was one car that automatically shot out lightning at any nearby pedestrian, killing them instantly. And there was one level with a beach and maybe 200 pedestrians on it, closely huddled together in the water. I remember driving there once in the electric car, but the constant sound of people dying became too much, and it went from funny to disturbing, and I actually felt sick to my stomach. That's the only time I've ever felt like that playing a video game. I still love the game though, but I just didn't do that again. The last big fixation I had in this era was with Grand Theft Auto and GTA London. It was the first game when I got to play as a bad guy. In Carmageddon you were just being crazy, but here you were a criminal. It was refreshing, and the freedom to explore the cities was also great. At the time I didn't think about the limitation in perspective. I had the demo to GTA first, getting to play for 400 seconds before the game would end. Most of the time I would run over people and then try to avoid the police, something that still hasn't gotten old in GTA games. And who can forget Guranga? After playing it I came to prefer GTA London, in part because you could do drive-bys, and I liked the Britishness of the game.
Listen right, we're looking for a lad who can do his stuff. I've heard you're a bit tasty. No.
I remember going to the Buckingham Palace and shooting people with a machine gun, then running from the police as you inevitably have to. The first GTA and London had missions placed in parked cars, something that wasn't used in later ones. One in GTA 1 had a bus. You had to drive slowly but steadily for a good while to avoid it exploding, just like the movie Speed. Trouble was in GTA, as soon as you would hit another car even slightly, you would stop almost completely, and avoiding cars was very hard, so this mission was impossible to do. I had a very good time as a PC gamer, but as time went on, my classmates got new computers, while I did not. So when they were playing Half-Life and Counter-Strike, I was still playing Duke Nukem 3D, Carmageddon and Psycho Pinball. I think that made me appreciate graphics more, since I'd never participated in the race, so to speak. But in 2001 I discovered something that would hold me over until my next computer, while helping me rediscover my earlier childhood anew.